with us on the Why Project Play Matters panel now is my friend, my longtime friend, Caitlin Morris of Nike. She is the Vice President and Social Community Impact Director there. A new friend of mine, relatively, this guy's going to be a senator someday. You wait until you listen to him talk. Tyrre Burks, who is a former college football player. He is now the CEO of an insurance company called Players Health, which is doing some very innovative things. We're going to talk about that as well in terms of insurance incentives. And on the end, another very good friend of mine, Chris Snyder, who I know a lot of people in this room know, was the former director of coaching at the U.S. Olympic Committee and is now the Senior Vice President of Operations for I-9 Sports. So welcome to you all for me. So I want to start with the OGs. That's you.
I know.
Yeah. You were at that first meeting. Ken, we'll go to you, Chris, next. You were at that first meeting. What do you remember for that meeting? And what were you hoping Project Play could achieve at that time?
Well, Tom, I'm going to go back even further because I remember being in your office in DuPont Circle, little office next to Walter Isaacson's office, and talking about what this could be. And at the time, I was really struck by the opportunity here because we'd done work in New Orleans, and there was a woman named Kathleen Whalen who was with the Partnership for Youth Development at the time, and she had this saying, kids around the age of 9 on the playground, they start transitioning from play to sport. And if they don't play sport, they just stop playing altogether. We've been doing a lot of work in schools, but I thought, we don't do something in sports, we're going to lose kids. And so when we came to Aspen, I was already ready. I was ready to go. And I think what my feeling was is you thought you were going to write a report, we were all going to give you some feedback. And people in the room were like, no, we're going to make this real, we're going to get this done. And so it was really exciting.
Yeah, I announced it as a 2-year initiative back then.
Yeah, from my perspective, I remember Tom rolling into the Aspen Institute, getting all these amazing powerhouse brands and logos, and he literally did his best Tom Cruise impression from Jerry Maguire. Those that haven't seen that movie, it also is kind of like Will Ferrell, who goes streaking in Old School. Who's coming with me? Bring your hat, your green hat, Snoop. Or who's coming with me? We're going to build a better youth sports. And what happened is what happens at times. You know, when you get big leaders with big brands, one or two things happen. They're so engaged, they talk over one another, or they all sit back and are quiet and they don't follow you because they're not sure what the heck to do. And Tom's out there saying, who's coming with me? And everyone's like, are you doing it? Because you do it, I'll do it.
We're doing
So
it.
that was the thing. Everybody started looking around the room saying, okay, he's telling us there's a problem. Do we believe him? And it's funny because I remember thanking him later. We went back and did research. He was telling us, and the whole team at Aspen, that 60% of kids are dropping out by 12, and we went back to the Olympic Committee and did our own research. And I thanked him, like, dude, you rounded down. It's like 65%. It's like 73% for girls. Thanks for making us look better. And he's like, yeah, so now you got to help. So that was the big thing. It was kind of that start to rally the troops and bring them all back in. And that was the thing. People kind of shied away saying, okay, who's going to do it first? But you got one, then another, then another. And I think that was the whole idea. We don't want to do this for you, but we want to give you permission to work together. So that's what I remember from the first 10 years ago.
Yep. And how do you assess the impact of the initiative? Let's start with you. Ty, you guys have more experience, but I want to kind of bring you into this. As someone who's new to it,
well, I think with our organization, so we work with roughly about 20,000 sports organizations. I was sharing this with someone earlier. For the first time in the history of our company, we don't have to actually have boots on the ground to understand what's happening within the youth sports ecosystem. We credential over 100,000 coaches. We see abuse incidents across the nation. We see injuries accelerate. So while looking at data of the incidents that are happening across the organizations that we support, it drives us to action. And so I think the impact comes into the awareness, understanding exactly what we're up against, because we can't fight something where we don't know what we're up against. Now that we know, similar to what you've done, just being a leader and aggregating some of the greatest leaders in sports, how can we make change? But here's what we're up against. And this is where we ultimately want to get to. And there's going to be a set of progressive steps that we need to take along the way. And we can't stop until we win.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah, I was going to say, look, you've got this issue around shared data and visibility, but then you really need to get everyone to share the same message. In Project Play, when we did the state of play, in that playbook, we got to these plays where everyone could agree this is what we need to do. And I think that's critically important.
The biggest thing is starting to see people utilize resources and utilize that terminology that we all started to socialize. And to your point you're making, Caitlin, it's like really the proof's in the pudding. If people start using a child's Bill of Rights, they start using some online coaching courses that were created, they start to utilize the tool to evaluate, would this be a good fit for my athlete or my child? Now we're cooking with oil, and that's what you want. Value is if people actually apply what's being said, and that's where I think we would see a lot of the initiatives starting to get to. I was telling Caitlin earlier that we've almost gotten a PhD. Over 10 years, you get a PhD, right? Undergrad to master's to PhD. Takes about 10 years for those that can really kick butt, take names. Tom, we've had a PhD in Project Play and what youth sports is for the last 10 years. Are people using it? Can you value, that you're using your education in the field? Well, we're starting to see those resources built over that journey get utilized, normalize the terms. I think that's how you can evaluate the impact. The question is, what are you going to do now in the future with all the things we've learned and all the tools we're starting to use? How do you go bigger to do more?
And I appreciate you making that turn, because we're fine with the celebration stuff. It's important. More important is what happens going forward. Caitlin, where do you see the greatest opportunities for progress over the next, 7 to 10 years?
7 to 10 years? Yeah. Look, Nike was founded by an athlete and his coach, so it's not going to surprise you that I believe it's still in coaching. This is the work we did with Project Play to start and with Chris around how to coach kids as our first digital tool. And we've continued to build on that. But I really, coaching is one thing that you can do at scale and be local at the same time. And so for me, it's coaching. Jill Ellis has this wonderful saying that coaches are the caretakers of dreams, but kids can't chase their dreams if they're standing still. So how do we really get them all moving? And how do they all have a coach they can relate to who's trained?
How do we do that, Chris? You've been in the weeds on this one.
Yeah, you started talking about we have a system, acknowledging we have a system, top to bottom. I think we all would say we have a system. The question is, over the next 7 to 10, can everybody do their role in that system collaboratively? Can we say, hey, look, if we don't bond to battle, and we continue to battle to bond over who gets the dollar or who gets the prize or who gets recognition, our kids are going to suffer, and that's what nobody wants. So over the next 7 to 10, if it's with coaching and arming the coaches the ability to push back and say, hey, I don't want to play that many games in a tournament, or arming the administrators to say, hey, that's not the best way to do it. We got to spend 10 more minutes on physical literacy, or we need to find scholarships to get more kids into our programming because every kid needs access and we want them playing our sports. The next 7 to 10 comes to all of us now activating on those key things to make that system. And if we do, we're going to continue to find greatness that we always thought we had, but was slipping away from us. So I think that's going to be the key for the future.
You have a thought?
Well, I think one of the biggest opportunities is that we don't have to convince anyone anymore. So we don't have to spend time getting everyone to corral around the problem. We know the problem. It's now time to change behavior, and we now have to hold people accountable and creating tracking mechanisms for us to understand where we sit in the spectrum and how are we benchmarking against one organization to the next, and provide as much transparency to the marketplace so that parents, all of the stakeholders understand who's doing good, this is how they're doing good, and who's not, and why, and where's the gap there. And I think until we are able to bridge that, no one knows what organization is actually kind of waving the flag saying we're actually going to kind of be a part of this change.
Yeah. One of the great things that Tyrre got done in the past year, 2 years, I think in the past year or so. So Chicago Public Schools, where he grew up on the South Side, did not have athletic trainers previously. This is a big thing. Kids get injured, they don't have access to ACL injury care or concussions or whatever it is. Tyrre, using his influence and his powers of persuasion, convinced Chicago Public Schools to get athletic trainers into every high school sports program. So let me ask you, and maybe, John, if you could cue the next slide. Oh, can you go to the next? Yeah. So the question is, like, how important is it to address the school's environment as well, right? I mean, Project Play has been primarily focused on the non-school environment to date, but we recognize that it's a real opportunity, lack of playing opportunities in high school, the tryouts sort of makes parents get their kids feel like they need to get on the bullet train at an early age. pay all that money or their kid loses an opportunity to play. We have the health and safety issues. You can see here a report card created by the Physical Activity Alliance. They looked at about 55 countries around the world using the same benchmarks around sport and physical activity. And you can see since 2014, the organized sport environment in terms of participation rates and otherwise has improved in this country. Everything else has been stagnant, and schools have moved down to a D- environment, despite having gyms and fields and all of this built-in infrastructure that a lot of places around the world don't have. To me, that's quite the indictment. So let me go back to Tyrre on this one. I mean, how do we get the schools to up their game?
I think when we think about our company and how we work with organizations, I like to go in with carrots than sticks. Using the word mandate is almost like a swear word in the sports industry, especially when it comes to youth sports, trying to force people to do things. What we do with our sports organizations, mostly our schools, we work with about 700-800 high schools. We want to help them understand if they do these progressive steps, and we're using data to make that assessment, here's the incentives we can get: cheaper insurance rates, which happens to be the largest expense that these organizations pay. How can we help them understand the economic value that they get for doing the right thing and actually reward them for doing that along the way? And I think there's going to be other creative ways. We have to think outside of the box. Insurance has never been offered in this way. Think of us as a Drive Safe program. The more health and safety aspects you implement, the better off it should be, the cheaper it should be, the more access kids should have. And that seems simple, definitely not simple, but that's one way in which we're actually attacking the problem, so to speak.
Mm-hmm. And Chris, what about you spent a number of years at the USOPC. Where do you see the opportunity for the NGBs? What's the appropriate ask of the NGBs, whether it be working with schools or working with non-school environments? What do you think?
Yeah, from the NGB perspective, they have the best purview into who's doing what, kind of keep track of what's going on there. Sometimes they can really govern and keep people in line, and sometimes they just got to collaborate and bring people together. An NGB could step in and actually be a partner to say, hey, in this state, in this region, here's great clubs that actually could come in and help service your school system. Here's other organizations that we know that do this sport very well, that make sure that everybody's background checked, that have access to quality coaching resources, that are doing the right things. And they could come in and offer that programming that you're not able to offer anymore in the school system. It's having those NGBs be that collaborator, or be that person that can go to organizations like are here in this room and say, hey, why don't you collaborate with these schools and deliver this sport and that sport, and be those connectors? Because schools would love to offer it to everybody. They don't have the resources. Their teachers don't want to stay after because they're taxed with all the academic responsibilities. They've kind of shrunken our pyramid down to cap out at high school. We've all wanted to square this pyramid and keep people playing as long as possible. So if everyone in the room, the NGBs included, as well as all organizations, can do our part and go to schools and say, we could offer after-school programming. I mean, I-9's trying to do that, of saying, we could spin up intramural programming for you and run this from 3 o'clock until 5 when people pick up their kids. Could another NGB come in and do this and broker that a local club program could come in and charge an affordable rate or undercut it? That's going to be where we can rally to help the schools, because they can't bring it back. They're not going to bring it back. But we all could come to them and say, I've got your assets, your resources, I'm doing the right things, and I've got a couple check marks from the smart people, the project plays, and the others that show that we're doing the right things. Hey, let us help, and let's find a way, whether we get rich off of as many heartbeats as possible, or the dollars that we need to keep the lights on, or doing the right thing. Let's find a way that we work together to make good happen. But it's gonna take people stepping up to bring that connection together.
Speaking of people stepping up, they're not only just stepping up, they're coming together, right? So Caitlin, and one of the nice developments we've seen, not just in the project play communities of Baltimore and Detroit and Rochester and Seattle with working with the UW, but other cities, Philadelphia, Milwaukee, I don't know, at least more than a dozen cities now have these like local coalitions where people coming together, sharing knowledge, finding ways to collaborate. Where do you see the potential of those groups in driving the type of systems level change that we think is necessary?
I think place-based investing is essential. I think that, when we started this work, we really tried to take the collective action framework and apply it nationally, and it just doesn't work. It's too disjointed. But when you get local, you can really measure your impact. And sport is local. We talked about it there being a system. The system is so hard to follow, I don't understand it. So let's just talk about what we can sort of see and measure. You should advocate nationally, but you need to invest at a local level.
Yep, good. And I want to give the last question to Chris here, because this is actually an important piece of it as well. Private equity has entered this space in the past few years. Your company, I9, is owned by private equity.
Yes.
Is this a plus? Is this a minus? And if it's a minus, how do we turn it into a plus?
I mean, I'll say it's a reality. I left the United States Olympic Paralympic Committee to go work for a recreationally sport-oriented company that is franchising to get everybody playing the best way, using all the best ADM models and the stuff that we've done at Project Play. But it's owned by private equity at the end of the day, of really smart people that want to make as much money as possible. But they're smart and they know you make the most money possible by giving parents what they want, which is enrichment, which is core values, which is sports that connect to what they think they had growing up and that they want for their kids. So the key is private equity is smart enough. They know that gets the dollars from parents and gets them to spend. They're also smart enough to bring in very smart leaders and thinkers to say, safety is a requirement, so you need to check the box on these things. What private equity needs, what I'm experiencing, is they need the experts like us in the room to say to them, this is the non-negotiables. You can't cut corners on this. You've got to do these things, even if it costs you more money. Because in the end, the return on investment is mom and dad feel safe. They're going to do the right thing. So private equity, whether it's good or bad, hey, it's real. It's not going to go away. The question is, can we all collaborate to know that working together in this crazy system we can barely define, but it is a system, hey, it's got to have checks and balances. We've got 10 years of knowing what Project Play is, what youth sports needs to look like. The key is, can we activate to make that happen collectively? And it doesn't matter how you file your taxes, you're all accountable to do it the right way.
Terrific. Well, before we wrap this panel, I want to play a video from Craig Robinson, who was supposed to be on this. Craig is also another one of our OGs. He was there in 2013. He had planned to be here today. I got a call yesterday that there was a family emergency that he needed to tend to, but he was kind enough last night to tape a message and help us announce a new project that's very exciting, a new partnership for us in Chicago. So.
Hello, everyone. I am so sorry that I couldn't be with you there personally, and as a substitute, I thought I'd leave this message for you. Like all of you there today, the Obama Foundation believes that sports have the power to transform lives, strengthen communities, and move people from hope to action. And as a Chicagoan who grew up not far from where the Presidential Center will be, I know how much our community loves sports. That's why I was excited to learn that the foundation is working with Project Play to survey young people in the community about what they are playing, what they'd like to play, their experiences with coaches, and the barriers that too often prevent them from playing the sports they love. Their perspectives will not only inform the programming that the foundation ultimately offers, but they will be crucial to ensuring that the foundation's work is additive to the local landscape of existing programs. For instance, the foundation is looking at girls' participation rates, the coaching gap, and opportunities to equip young people with the skills and experiences they need to pursue careers in and around sports. I also know that the foundation is working closely with Caitlin and the folks at Nike, who are major supporters and are already doing amazing work around these issues. So it's an exciting time, and once the center opens, it will be a tremendous space to convene leaders from across sports and social impact to elevate what's working and deepen our collective impact. Again, I wish I could be there with you. I am so sorry that I couldn't be there with you, but keep up the good work. See you soon. Thanks.
Well, yeah, thank you to Craig for taping that, and thank you to Chris, to Tyrre, and Caitlin for a terrific panel. We'll continue all of these conversations later on, so give them a good hand.